Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Foxborough's Board of Selectmen, May 7th, 2013 meeting. I'll go over the agenda quickly. At 7 o'clock, we have citizens' input and anything that's not reasonably anticipated 2 days in advance. At 7:05, we'll do chairman's update. And at 7:10, as we do after every election, we have the board reorganization. At 7:20, we have Toby Keith's Restaurant, Manager Barry Burks, the application for the change of manager. That's over at 275 Patriots Place. At 7:30, we have Jack Arthurlet, our town historian, and A.J. Dooley coming in to discuss a June 1st volunteer effort, townwide cleanup. At 7:40, our town manager, Kevin Pecos, is going to give us an update on the trash collection contract that we're in right now with Russell. At 7:50, we are going to have our annual performance review, the salary adjustment part of Kevin Pecos, our town manager's contract. At 8:15, we're going to go into executive session to talk about negotiations with non-union personnel. So we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and John, would you lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll start off with citizens' input, but before we get there, I just want to recognize John is our new Board of Selectmen member. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And,
It's good to be here.
yeah, I think, I remember 3 years ago when I came on, I was allowed to say a few words. Let's go through citizens' input and then chairman's update, and then right before we do the reorganization, we'll give you an opportunity to
Super.
address the town. Is that okay with everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. All right, so under citizens' input, anybody? Sandra?
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. It's my pleasure, whoops, this is really loud, this evening to present to the board the completed 2012 annual town report. And there's a few people I'd like to thank for this evening. First of all, I'd like to thank all the department heads who work so diligently to produce this report. The credit really goes to them. And it's really a history for us to bring forward for generations of exactly what's been accomplished in our town this year. And I'd also like to take time to thank the Town Report Committee, which was chaired by Lorraine Brew. We didn't always agree on everything, but I think we came to an agreement, and I'm kind of one of those people, I've done something for so long, change doesn't come easily. So I was probably a little resistant in the beginning, but I think this report will be probably user-friendly. We've enlarged the font a little bit for our senior citizens, and we've widened the margins. And I think you'll enjoy reading it. And I'd also like to say a special word of thanks to Jack Arthurlet. And every year Jack comes to me right before it's time to start working on this. And either he has a great idea for me or he says, do you have something in mind? And this year I did, and I wanted to have something that would unify our town, that would bring us back together. And as Jack always does for me, he came through in such a big way. Not only is the cover spectacular, but the dedication is just unbelievable. And I know that Jack spent many, many hours doing this. It's obvious when you look at it. And Jack has done this for me for a long time, and he's never asked anything in return. And I'm so grateful, Jack. You are always there for me. And as a result, you're there for our town, too, because this is a history that will go on for years and years. So thank you, Jack, and for the board.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I'd also like to thank Sandra and Chris for their input, and also thank the volunteers that participated on the committee, Bob Vondenbrink, Harold Casson, Ann Dean, and Dick Heidecker, all contributed to this beautiful book. And again, thank Jack Arthurlet for this terrific introduction, and the cover is just fabulous. So thank you again for your work.
Very nice. And for those of you that, I know she said her name, but Sandra is the executive secretary for the Board of Selectmen for many years, and we appreciate your effort for doing this.
And she's very humble, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and giving praise, but she is the lady who takes all this and puts it together and somehow manages to produce a beautiful report that gets bigger and bigger each year and we pay less and less for it. I don't know how she does that.
Thank you. Anyone else under citizens input?
Hi, my name's Todd Kaiser. I live at 42 Adams Street. I'm also a teacher here in town for 19 years, FEA president and chairperson of the IAC. Mr. Gray was not here in October when I stood up. Congratulations on your
Thank you,
seat. In October, I stood up here before you as you discussed legislation regarding healthcare reform that the state had passed forward and you were discussing adopting it. And I stood up before you and said that it is up to, by you guys discussing that, we were trusting that you guys would make the right decision. We were hoping to be part of that process in the decision-making. How the year went is on January 24th, the IAC was called. We got together. We discussed the upcoming possibilities. We were told that 4 weeks from that time period, we would receive the numbers that we would reconvene and discuss. On April 30th, I was handed a binder with the changes, told to sign a sheet saying that I've received the binder, that the town has made the decisions for it, and basically told that this is how it is. Now, I'm fully aware that legally we have no say in this. I've talked with Sean Buckley an awful lot about this as well, that we have no legal say in it. We are not required to, by law, to have any input in this. But in October, we had asked to be part of that process. We have not been. We was even told, by the way, as upon handing this, that it was suggested that I explain the changes to my members. I said, I'm not going to explain the changes to the members. I've had no say in those changes. The town has a responsibility to explain it to all the members. We were not given a voice. We've had an insurance advisory committee for the past 4 or 5 years that have met, and it has been underutilized. So basically, I just want to let you know this is how the year went. We understand that the PEC is forming this Thursday. We were told that to open up our Thursdays for the next 4 weeks because that's when they're meeting, when we could have definitely had this opportunity to discuss and arrange schedules and so forth. Luckily, I'm free those Thursdays. And I just say that, how this has gone with regards to healthcare reform and changes. A few years ago, we had been asked to be part of the process. We were told that if all the unions accept it, it would be passed through. A few did not. That was override it. The retirees a few years ago, that decision was made. We had input. That was ignored. We have asked yet again for input. And I just ask you to remember that I understand you have financial obligation for this town, and you've done a remarkable job for that. But there are people that work for you as part of this town, and we're being ignored. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Where it's under citizens' input, this topic came up several meetings ago. Bill, you can have brought it up with respect to the same thing, but with respect to the school and the school employees. It was answered then. It was a few weeks ago. We can go back and forth. If you can give a very brief response. If it's more than brief, then we'll put it on the agenda at the next meeting.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me just say to the board, this is not the appropriate way that this process is supposed to unfold. This open microphone at the board meeting should not be used as a vehicle to comment on a legal collective bargaining process which is guided by law. The town is being guided in that process every step of the way. We have performed precisely according to the legal requirements. There may be some confusion, and the confusion may be that the labor unions participate in the decision to implement the provisions of the statute. The labor unions do not. You exclusively make that decision, and you have done so, and that has been transmitted clearly to the bargaining unit members. I think there's some hope that some members of the bargaining units that are covered by this are going to be allowed to derail the process or in some way to alter it to a different conclusion. That is not going to happen. What is going to happen is we are going to contemporize the employee health insurance program. It will still, with the deductibles and co-pays that we introduced, that the law allows, which over a third of the communities in the state have already done, it will still fall far short of the kind of health insurance that the private sector provides to the vast majority of Americans. But it will be better. And in the process, it actually will end up saving the employees a substantial amount of money, the taxpayers a substantial amount of money. It will execute the law, and the part of the process which we are required by law to enfranchise the unions into is the process of deciding how to spend that portion of the money, which in the first years, half of the taxpayers' savings is to be returned to the employees. That's the sole discussion that we are required and that we clearly communicated we will engage in. And to provide the board with some idea of the complexity of putting this together, when we finally got the rates in March, as I told you, and we finally put the whole package together that by law we are required to give to the bargaining unit presidents, as Todd indicated, it wasn't a few pieces of paper, it was a book, and that's what the law requires. This is complex, but we are going through it with great precision. We are being as respectful as we can possibly be of the unions that are covered by this. I am one of those employees who will be impacted by it. But I don't want there to be any confusion. Engagement does not mean changing the outcome. It means solely changing the distribution of the savings. That's all it means. And we are doing that. First meeting is this Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else under citizens? Yep, George?
George Leonard, 3 Aldrich Road. I attended the April 30th meeting of the Crossroad Veterans Service District and was quite upset as to its dealings. My thoughts that led into this can only come out in one direction, and this is April 30th. My impression was it was going to be dissolved, and it has been. I have to go on to say that I really appreciate the intent and the feelings of all those involved. Sometimes good intentions just don't come out the way that we wish the desired result to happen. This is an effort that has been getting completely out of control and has become too politically involved, and it is taking away the intended efforts for us to assist the veterans in a better way. I'm sorry that this happened, but what can I say? I was really appalled with the whole thing.
All right, thank you, George. Paul, you want to add something to that?
Good evening. Paul Dumas, 4 Adams Street. And currently, I am the Foxborough representative on the Crossroads Veterans District. Bob Seitman had preceded me till he got ill and did a great job. And I want to commend the Board of Selectmen for their support of veterans in this town. Okay, I want to commend Kevin Pecos, the town manager. I want to commend Mike Johns, Heath Hobson, and Bob Seitman for all the efforts that they did for veterans in this town. And this topic, similar to what the earlier citizens, but should go on the agenda for full vetting, and I can come up and talk at length to share information that you folks need to do. Our town can be proud of what we've done for our veterans, and I can tell you our veterans are still going to be taken care of, and we thank you for your support. Thank you.
Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Now, this is one topic, if you've read the news, it was kind of the dismemberment of the regional effort that we started. I was asked to put it on the agenda tonight by several people. I did reach out to Michael Johns, I reached out to Kevin Pecos and a few other people, and I think it was premature to put it on tonight. Having said that, I don't want the people to think there was a lack of concern for the topic, because it is an important topic, but it needs to settle for a few weeks. We need to get our arms around it, and then we'll come back with a representation from the committee and Michael Johns, and he said he would be happy to come and discuss it with us. But tonight was not the time for it, even though I appreciate the sentiment, but it is gonna be a topic. If it's not next week, when the committee and Michael Johns is ready to come in, we'll certainly entertain that. Anyone else from citizens input? A brief on the chairman's update, which we do every week. I wanted to reach out to Linda Walsh. It was a campaign that I would say was very positive. It seems like it was a positive from beginning to pretty much the end. Linda worked for this town for 6 years as a volunteer, and she left her heart and a lot of her soul at this table over 6 years. Not to take away anything from John, but she worked hard, and I think she'll be missed here. And I hope, and I think I know she'll be back to some level. Hopefully she can run again next year and make the board a little better.
Wow.
But
Get used to it.
you're safe, you have 2 more years. But it's tough. The elections, there's always gonna be a winner and a loser, and my gratitude for the effort that Linda did for the past 6 years. Like I said, John, I'll let you talk a little bit after the chairman's update, but I also wanted to reach out to the people that helped me to say thank you, the residents that supported me, my wife Nicole and the 3 kids that I guess really allowed me to spend 3 more years here. I appreciate that. We had a double election this year. We had a state level election and we had a town election. And I wanted to thank Bob Cutler and the town hall and the clerk's office and the many volunteers that worked really from sunrise. They were here till very late in the evening cleaning up after the polls came out. It was a very long night, and there was a lot of volunteers. And I think from everything that I heard, it was a very positive experience for the voters to come in and get 2 different ballots and get routed through the process. I was very proud of the effort. And, you know, at the end of the day, there was about 28%. Not proud of that, because 28% is, I think, woefully in the United States to come out. I think we did better than other towns, but by God, if you can come out once a year or twice a year to vote, it should be higher than 28%. Playing off that, we have a town meeting on Monday, which is May 13th, and many of the people are here tonight. There's 14 hardworking advisory committee volunteers that worked with the department heads, with one of our longest-standing businesses, the Invensis of the Foxborough Company, that worked hard on 29 articles. And if you can come out and vote on Monday, you know, you hate to see when a couple hundred people come out for a population that we have, but please come out. There's some important articles. They're online already. I know the Patch has them if you want to read it. The Reporter's going to have it in their paper on Thursday, so take the time to read it and come out. And lastly, one important topic. I spent 4 hours today over at the State House dealing with what they call the Adam Walsh Act. One of the reasons that I decided to run again was because there's some unfinished business with the Sheehan issue. And what happened, 20-plus years ago still has to be addressed. So I testified today at the State House with a committee, and hopefully that process is going to make a difference. And this is an uncomfortable topic, but I think the only way to address it is to keep talking about it. Basically, the group that came in front of me, what I said today was they asked 3 questions. How could that have happened? And that's in the past, and we're dealing with that. The second issue is, how does people bring that forward a couple times over the last 10 years and be told that either the statute of limitations ran out or it's in a different state and our hands are tied? The third question that we were asked, that I think this table is responsible for, is how do we not make it happen? How do we not let it get to that level again? And times have changed, but what I think we need to do as a board and through the town, and we started it with a policy, is the Adam Walsh Act, which is how can we reach over the lines in the state? How can it be reported? How can the levels, sex offenders 1, 2, and 3 be established so it's common knowledge no matter where you go in this country? So I reached out after that meeting, coming back, I reached out to Linda Walsh. She very happily said that she would still stay on that committee, and I just wanted the people to know that the people that are impacted, it's still a focus, even though the board changed. Linda's still going to stay on it. I spoke to somebody that's gonna come in front of the board that can help us draft that policy that we've been struggling with, so. I don't wanna leave the chairman's update on a negative note, but I think the positive of that is we need to move forward in a positive direction, and I think that's one of the big responsibilities this board has in the next year or so. So on that, John, if you wanted to say a few words to the town?
Yeah, I don't want to be
Member?
long-winded or anything, but I'm grateful that the election's over. It's an exhausting process. And I'm really equally grateful for the vote of confidence that the voters of Foxborough gave me and the opportunity to join this board. A lot of work in front of us. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm ready for the journey.
Very well said.
Thank you.
So the next on the agenda is what we do every year, the board reorganization. So what we'll do is, we'll take recommendations, the three positions that we have as chairman, vice chairman, and clerk. And I'll start off by saying I enjoyed the year. I didn't enjoy it all the time, but I appreciate the year as chairman. I have no desire to be chairman again, so I'd appreciate it if someone else wanted to nominate somebody, and we can discuss that.
I'll go in the natural order, I think. Nominate Mark Sullivan to be chairman for this coming year.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made, seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0. You abstained, Mark?
Yes.
Okay, 4-0-1 with Mark abstaining. And this is a little odd situation. Now I'm not the chairman, but I'm gonna continue on for this process, and then we do the little switch, if that's okay with the board.
Yeah, continue. Yeah.
Nomination for vice chairman.
I'd like to nominate Lorraine Brew for vice chairman.
Second.
Motion made for Lorraine for vice chairman, made by John, seconded by Ginny. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And one abstain, so 4-0 with Lorraine abstaining.
Thank you.
Before we get into the clerk's position, I wanted to talk about this position, and I don't want anyone to take offense because it's been the same for the 3 years. I see the clerk's position has turned into somewhat of a ceremonial position, where we read a citation or we read a newspaper advertisement. I would like to see, having been chairman for the year and not asking the clerk to do much because nobody's ever done it in the years, I think that role should become a clerk's position. I saw a bottleneck of meeting minutes at the end of the year, that it would have been nice to have them, and again, this isn't you, because when I was clerk, I didn't do it either, but I think the clerk's position has to rise up a little bit and take responsibility for meeting minutes and schedules, and when someone sends us an invitation to a Cub Scout thing and nobody responds because we think somebody else is doing it, I think the clerk is responsible for making sure that is brought up to a level. Take some of the burden off of Sandra and Chris, but I'd like that position to be a little bit more active for the next year, if you understand that.
Makes sense. I mean, I think it's really along the lines of how the clerk position on the advisory committee works. They
Yeah,
have
for the longest
a lot
time.
more involvement with scheduling and things like that.
Mhm.
So it makes a lot of sense, Jim. And I'd like to ask Ginny if she's interested in being clerk, again, as part of the natural rotation.
Actually, no. No.
Smarter
Okay.
than the rest of
All
us.
right. So then I would nominate John Gray to be clerk as the next rotation.
I'll second that nomination.
You still a chairman, any discussion?
It's been nominated and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0-1. So that's our new board. Now, if we can pick up our stuff, and do you want to keep the same chairs, we'll just
Sure.
rotate. In other words, you want to be chairman from there? Or you wanna
That's
be-
fine, whatever. I'll give it a try.
Mark, you gonna sit in the middle? Which one is your good ear?
Why don't we switch? I won't be in, I'll be confused. It don't take much.
How do we do this?
You want to sit over there?
The clerk should be here. We had that wrong all year.
You took the blotter? Really?
Everything's on it here.
Oh, no. I didn't take the blotter. Oh, I don't write anything on the blotter.
Just like my father, he takes everything that's not nailed down.
Talk about forgotten fast, huh? Jeez.
You can have your paper signed.
Those are John's?
You want the outside chair? You wanna stay?
No, I'd like to.
All right, everybody all set? Well, I'd like to thank the board for the trust in me to be in this position again. And I need a lot of help. And Jimmy did a great job last year, I mean, and he did a lot of it, took a lot of other things on that I think he's right, need to pass it on. I think the clerk thing is a very good idea, it's gonna be a lot of, thing I'm gonna rely on everybody on this board for, and we'll see the best, we'll all work together, that's it. I'm no different than any of you, I'm just sitting in the middle. So let's try and have at it. So the first article tonight would be application of change of manager at Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill located at 7275 Patriots Place, Barry J. Burks. You wanna come forward, Barry? Anybody else that's with you
All right.
needs to come forward?
The water. Water bottle.
This one.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Welcome. And
Thank you.
just for the record, you have his name right? Okay.
Barry J. Burks, yep.
Okay. You wanna just, introduce yourself to the board? Go from there?
My name is Barry Burks. I've worked for Toby Keith's for going on 3 years now. I was actually part of the opening process. I helped build and open the restaurant. I've been on the road for the past 2 years or so at a corporate level, opening new locations, fixing problems, whatnot. When the opportunity came up to get back home and to stay home, I jumped at the chance. I am a current resident of South Boston. I'm moving to Mansfield at the end of the month, so I will be close by. A big part of what I do in this business is be part of the community, is to reach out. We don't want to be in a situation where we're just a business taking. We do want to give back to the community, and that's something that I've always done my whole career and pretty much my whole life. So I'm excited to get back into Foxborough and, generate some goodwill and some change and, hopefully run a successful business.
Open it up to the board. Jim? Any questions? Ginny?
Nope, what's that?
All right?
Well said, thank you.
We had talked before the meeting, we got to know him a little bit better,
This
so
is true.
I'm fine.
Okay. Joan? Kevin?
Just one question through the chair. Section 4D requires a enumeration of your occupation job for the last 10 years. You went back to 2007, which I think was your job prior to Toby Keith's for the junction. There's some years missing. What was prior to 2007, please?
I was in New York State for a while. I was working in Rochester, New York. Prior to that, I had been working for Eat Well, which is a group out of Hingham that had, has Tosca, a couple places in Hingham, and also they had Waterworks in Marina Bay. I ran that place from '99 to '02. Upon leaving them, I had an opportunity to become a managing partner in the establishment in Rochester, New York. So I was out there for 2003, 2004, and came back in 2005.
So just for the chair, for the board, the application does require 10 years of employment history, and there's quite a few years missing. So if the board's pleasure is to approve this, I would suggest that you make it subject to the filing of a complete employment record for the past 10 years.
Yep.
By the way, we use that to go back and see if there's been any problems in terms of your management of prior establishments, so it's kind of critical information.
I understand, and I apologize for the oversight.
The other thing I would say is, we've had some situations up there. I really don't appreciate that. I think the town, the public safety officials appreciate that, so I'm hoping you being the responsible party moving forward, that you know, try and get that all taken care of.
No, I definitely do, and even in my travels, I would keep a close contact of what was going on, in Foxborough. I've always considered it my home store, and whenever anything happened, I was made aware of it and, cringed, and just not, obviously, it's not the way we want to do business. There is a responsibility involved, especially with serving alcohol, that I take very seriously. I've already reached out to the police department. They know of me anyways, and I feel I work well with them. And, we will work together to make sure that we're doing everything on our end, which we do anyways, which is tips training for all our employees, awareness classes, but just to reiterate on our end, when somebody's having too much fun, how to deal with somebody who's had too much, the proper way to do things, not just sweep them under the rug. Hopefully they get home okay. No, it's not the way I do things. It's not the way we do things as a company. So I'll be there to reiterate those things. And most weekend nights, I will be at the front door, handling those things personally. So, and I have extensive experience in the restaurant business, dealing with all aspects of it. Unfortunately, including that situation from time to time, and make sure that we handle things correctly.
Any other questions?
Yeah, have you been the manager since 2010, or is it just recent?
I've been a manager in the company since 2010. I've been based out of Foxborough, but I've been on the road, traveling probably about 300 days a year. Going to different parts of the country, either opening or rehabilitating, restaurants in our company, and that's part of the reason why I was doing that is because of my background, because of my expertise in fixing issues and making sure that we're running things correctly.
Okay, so it's just been recently that Mr. Tarantino is no longer the manager?
Yes, as of late January, correct.
January, okay, thank you.
Yes.
But if there was an issue, you would respond?
Absolutely.
Okay, and even from South Boston, you would respond? I know you're moving there to
Yeah.
Mansfield.
Right, I'm moving there at the end of the month, but, generally, on those nights, especially those higher volume nights where you have more propensity for things going wrong, I'm in the building, so, your Friday nights, your Saturday nights, I'm there. I'm there making sure that, things are running right. That's the responsibility of a general manager anyways, especially in an alcohol establishment. You need to be there in those peak times, especially where it's potentially your name on the license. You want to make sure that, you're there.
These other years that you're gonna fill in for us, those were liquor serving establishments in the hospitality business?
All of them have been, except for the time when I was 16, when I worked at McDonald's. I think they've all been liquor serving establishments, so.
Okay, any other questions? Entertain a motion?
So motion to approve the change of manager to Barry J. Burks at Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill at 275 Patriot Place,
Wouldn't it be subject to the completion of the
subject to the
application?
completion of the job history, employment history. Thanks.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Jim Gonzalez. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay,
Okay,
thank
good
you,
luck.
good luck.
Thank you. I just have one question. Should I just go to the town clerk and get that?
No, file it in our
Sandra.
office with the
File it there?
lovely lady
Okay.
right
If you want
behind.
to do it before you even leave the building, it'd probably be the best situation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we have Jack Othlet and AJ Dooley. You guys want to come forward, please? An update on the town refuge, June 1st volunteer townwide cleanup.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm already off the hook. June 1st, I won't be in town.
I'm sorry. You got time to change your plans.
You can change it.
Thank you for the courtesy for the record. I'm Jack Offolet, this is A.J. Dooley. Just one quick bit of background. Last year at town meeting, we were discussing an article about Foxborough going green with construction requirements and so forth. And I did take that opportunity to mention that I thought we had a much more pressing matter about Foxborough going clean. I commented on the amount of litter everywhere, how unsightly it was. I mentioned our throughways becoming throughways, they smelled so bad. And I also lamented the absence of trash barrels. You can only find them around the common and one in front of Memorial Hall. And I really thought that something would happen after those remarks, but nothing did. And here we are, we came to Earth Day this year and nothing was on the books. Now, I did take a walk with my wife. We just 25 minutes through the center of town around, and we took some pictures, and 2 of them appeared in the Foxborough Reporter last week. Now, as one who has devoted much of his life to the printed word, I have to admit that sometimes a picture is, as they say, worth 1,000 words. 2 pictures appeared in the Foxborough Reporter last week. And just literally moments after the paper came out, the phone was ringing. And it was A.J. Dooley. So I'll let A.J. state his case.
Okay, my name is A.J. Dooley, and so here's basically how this thing came along. On May 2nd, 2013, an article appeared in the Foxborough Reporter entitled "Time to Clean Up Foxborough." The article, written by a longtime resident and town historian Jack Offolet, displayed 2 disturbing pictures of litter and debris near the center of town. In the article, Jack appealed to the readers to get involved with a town-wide cleanup. Jack went on to explain how such a cleanup would be a bold statement by a caring community, along with reminders that such littering is totally unacceptable here in the gem of Norfolk County. After reading the article, I contacted Mr. Offolet and offered my company, Dooley Disposal, to come alongside and assist him in any way that we could. Jack and I have discussed the project and decided it would be advantageous for the town if the cleanup could be completed on June 1st in preparation for Founder's Day on Saturday, June 18th, 2013. Dooley Disposal will be donating all necessary equipment. Furthermore, will absorb all disposal and recycling costs during the event. Our only request is that the town aids us in promotion of this event. We love this town and we believe this is a tremendous opportunity to come together and to clean it up.
So what the plan would be to designate different sections of town, make an appeal to every group and organization in this town, every family, every individual, anybody who would be willing to come up that day. There would be a person in charge of each of these areas, and as volunteers came forward, they would be assigned, or some might have a particular area they would like to work in. Once they were out and filling bags, these bags would be all brought to a central location, a phone call would be made, a dually truck would come out, pick everything up. So, I mean, there's a lot of people willing to do work, but then what do you do with it? Well, Dooley takes care of that by doing all the lumping and laboring and disposals, and we just think that this could hopefully make a statement for the entire town, get everybody pitching in, and it also makes a statement about what we think of litter. We would do our best from that point forward to control it, but it just, I think with the number of phone calls that have followed AJ's, there's other groups, John Eva at Inventus saw the photos. They want to buy a part of this, get involved in it, and it'd be a perfect. AJ coaches a couple of sports teams. He thinks a lot of the young athletes would be happy to be out there. And it's a natural for scout groups, school groups, anybody. So if we have your blessing, now this webpage, It is not active yet. It'll be active hopefully by the end of the week. Mr. Dooley's gonna buy that web title so that we would always have it. So then we're already positioned to start next year and the year after and whatever, and just make this a part of life in everyday Foxborough. We used to have these year in and year out, and hopefully now what we would do with your blessing, we would start to put all these pieces together, get it out through all media outlets immediately, and by June 1, it's all organized, and although it runs from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., obviously not everybody can start at 8 o'clock. I mean, some will come in at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever. But in that time frame, we want somebody covering the entire town.
Okay, Sean?
I think it's a great idea. It's, one question, you know, time is racing to June 1st pretty quickly. Do you have enough time to get the army assembled, and who's the general?
Can I answer this? So my biggest thing on this is, yes, it is close.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a good way to start. It's a starting point. I don't think that we're gonna clean the whole entire town in this short of a time.
Well, I mean, if you're starting a tradition, why not?
Exactly.
Sure.
So this is something that I want to build off of. This is something, if we get people out there, last week in Mansfield they did this. On page 4 in here, you'll see some of the statistics that they wrote in here. The first time that they did it back in 2008, they had 1,000 volunteers. Now, obviously, they had a lot of time to get it together, but they took, I want to say it says like 5 tons of debris off the streets. I mean, that's 10,000 pounds of litter. Do I think we're going to get to that this year? No. But I don't see why we couldn't next year. And, we got to start somewhere, and I think now's the time.
Okay, Sean, you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set, thanks.
Jim?
The only thing I can think of is the diabetes race is June 1st as well. Is that,
10 o'clock it starts.
starts at 10?
Yeah, and
What
that's
time
goes
does this
down
start?
the pond.
This is 8 to 2.
Right?
I used to run in that. Maybe I should start running in it again.
Did you really?
Well, this year we-
Maybe I should start again.
There's a difference
Is it-
between walking and running.
Yeah, there is,
but
there is.
I think if volunteers, the volunteers are on the side of the road.
Yeah, well, I think,
I'm just saying, be cognizant of the maps and the
Yeah,
routes.
I know,
that's all.
I know where the route goes, and we could stay away from that area and then maybe go to that area afterwards.
well, it'd probably be a good idea. There'd probably be a lot of water bottles in the ground.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly.
But what we'll do is, if we can go ahead with this, we will very, very quickly align the blocks, use every media possibility available to us to get the detail out, give them, people, a number to contact for volunteering their services, and there will be a direct contact with every organization in town.
Will Command Central be the common?
I would think it'd be town hall, parking lot, right?
Yeah, well,
Typically, that's where
That'll be
everything
better
is
back
always,
there.
But
everything's
actually,
there.
we could have East Foxborough people meet down there. And South Foxborough, instead of bringing everybody up to one.
My real quick thoughts were like, if we were gonna send some people in East Foxborough, that they could meet in the borough, like we could have
Schools.
Right, so we could use the borough school, we could use the high school, town hall for the center, and even if we, set up 3 or 4 posts, this is, this just got started on Thursday, and if we can, find a few posts and get it going, I mean, I think that I think we could get enough done that it would be noticed.
Okay. Anybody else on the board? Jim?
Oh, this is a great idea, and I think this is the beginning of a Founder's Day week celebration, starting off with the kickoff of cleaning up the town, ending with fireworks on Founder's Day, and maybe in between we could put a dance that like we used to have, which would be very nice. So, thank you very much.
Organize that. I'll come.
I did that one time.
Pick it up again. All right.
I think it's
Right.
a great idea. Thank you for offering your services. That's really great.
Jack, just to kill 2 birds with 1 stone while you're here, you were here at the last meeting and you had a checklist of items around the common, the fence, the tree, is that stuff, that was supposed to get done up for the 250th anniversary, a different weekend?
Which is June 7th.
8th.
Some of it's been done,
Okay.
I don't have an update.
I can give you an update on it. I just talked to Roger on the way in. He's had one foundry out there today pricing the fence.
Mhm.
He said by this Friday, I just talked to Jack last week, he would have quotes in by the end of this week. And then I would review it with Roger and get back with Jack. It's probably gonna, there's 10 posts that need to be, we actually walked it this last week, and, with Jack, James and I, and there's 10 posts that are cracked at the bottom that need to be replaced too. And it, you know, it looks a lot different when you're driving by in a car. When you get up close to it, there's some damage.
They're tough, yeah.
So, Roger is also getting quotes on that granite work done, and he said he should have it by Friday. He was gonna call me, I was gonna call Jack, and then I'll inform the board. I would think we'll probably make an agenda item for the next meeting, after town meeting, to make sure it's on track. I will say that Roger said he doesn't know where the money's gonna come from, because the budget's coming to an end, the annual budget for the town. As far as the DPW is concerned, there's not a lot of money in the kitty, so the board might have to ask, the process going to the town manager through AdCom to appropriate some money to do it.
We'll take care of that. That's all set.
Yeah, okay.
We're
so
just
there's
waiting
your-
for the estimate, and
there's
it's
your
already
answer
in
there.
place.
So it's in motion, and, you know, we're pushing, we are pushing, so.
Yeah, well, one thing that was accomplished, the memorial tree that the town authorized on that traffic island in front of Memorial Hall many, many years ago. In the downtown revitalization, that tree was removed. And nothing was ever done to replace it. So when I called it to the attention of the town manager and the DPW, they obviously, they said, let's do it. It shouldn't be in any old location. It should be in a prominent location. And as luck would have it, a tree had to come down very near the bandstand on the common. And Roger said that that could go there, but the tree that he would prefer, because of the location, weather, vehicles, all that, would be a flowering tulip tree, and that happened to turn out to be Mrs. Bristol's favorite tree. So everything just fell into place. So that tree has been planted. So we were gonna have that program on the common Friday night, June 7th. I thought it would be an appropriate time to make reference to that and have Bristol family members there for the occasion. And so, you know, things are moving.
Are there any other plans for that island in front of Memorial Hall?
No, it's all taken up with traffic signals and it's all cement now.
Yeah. Used to be a mailbox there.
Yeah, mail drop, yeah.
That's 140.
The J.C.'s had planned on doing repairs to the bandstand. Do you know if that,
That was Saturday.
did they, that was completed? Oh, good.
I don't know if it was
That's awesome.
completed, I haven't been in touch with anybody
Well,
since.
I mean, they've been doing this for years, so if it wasn't completed, they're gonna be right back and do it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's never been a
The
problem with that.
first couple of times it rained, I was gonna help out with that, and it got rained out, and then it got moved, and I was away, so
Yeah.
I couldn't help this weekend, so. That's it. Any more questions? So you're gonna take this ball and run with it, both of you, and
Yes.
you just need the blessings of the board? Is that?
One other question. Do you need any traffic control?
I don't think so. We're gonna supply high visibility T-shirts for everyone who is involved. So, you know, I'm gonna try to get as many people to either give me a heads up with counts or to go on and register, so we know how many T-shirts that we need to supply and make sure that everyone, you know, and obviously we don't want, you know, kids in bad traffic areas. You know, we'll put them in certain areas, and we'll get as many chaperones out there as possible. We're not gonna put anyone in any risks whatsoever.
But there will be guidelines for anybody that brings a group of young people.
It's been
Just a
done
s-
before. It was done with, the graduating class 4 years ago, Pat Mitchell and them were involved. And I'm not sure, they do it through the scouts, or they do it through the school? They did a cleanup. And, if you contact Chris Mitchell, I'm sure he's got some information on how that was handled, and
Okay.
that's Troop 7.
And we're gonna reach out to Mansfield too and try to, you know, they've had this going successfully since 2008, and, you know, try to see, you know, they might have some suggestions of things that I might not even think about. So
Right,
I'm
sure.
open to anyone's ideas on this, and
Right.
like I said, just try to create something that can be done year after year and keep the town looking good.
DJ's been in high gear since last Thursday morning, and He's got his entire office staff working on this. Anthony's part of the team, and they're determined to make this work. And as I say, there will be a direct outreach to every group in schools, church, scouts, whatever. Get everybody.
I think it's great.
It's an opportunity.
I like the word tradition.
Opportunity
Great.
for them.
Be good. Any more questions from the board? Is
luck.
this something we need a motion for, or just our
No,
blessing?
just release the board's awareness and, great
Okay.
thing.
Thank you
Great
again.
thing.
If not
Yeah, thank
before,
you.
we'll see you June 1.
All right, thank you very much
Thanks,
for your
guys.
time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Nice job on the handout.
Okay. Okay, a little bit behind.
I got one.
Kevin Pecos, our town manager, now update us on the town refuse collection contract. Speaking of trash,
Sure. Jim asked me to give the board an update based on, I think, some articles you've seen in the newspaper, discussions I've been having with the Board of Health. I thought it kind of odd that the Board of Health has never traditionally been involved in the town refuse collection contract. I don't know why that is, but most communities they are. In fact, most communities, they issue it. So I met with them, actually had 2 or 3 meetings with them now and 2 or 3 meetings with staff. Their staff was very involved in writing the request for proposals, but the board itself wasn't. The 2 questions I really put to them were, generally, do you want any changes? And our discussion focused on 2 things. One was potentially asking the town vendor to do single stream. That's that single stream recycling. That takes all the small containers and replaces them with one big container. That's basically what that is. You'll see it in lots of communities. Some of the private vendors here do it. So that was one question I put to them. The other question was a little more fundamental, and that was kind of why are we even in this business? I guess from what I've been able to piece together from the history of it, the town for a long time now, nobody seems to know exactly how long, but
1997.
okay, there you go.
July 1st,
I asked the wrong
1997.
guy, so now I know. I asked the old chairman of the board, he didn't know, but no chair's a fountain of information, so.
The salary review is next.
Table that.
You still
I
got-
just moved the chair, but I'm still here.
He's quick. So, the bottom line here is that, from what I understand, what the town basically did is it collectivized the purchasing power of all the residents and issued a contract. And the idea was, you took, 3,000-4,000 people and said, okay, we're gonna give to somebody all this business, and you give us your best price. And that worked for a while. Last year, we made one fundamental change, and that is we got the town out of the collection business. We eliminated a clerical position, I think you may be aware of that, because we had somebody who was basically full-time doing nothing but tracking all these bills and collecting the bad debt. So and I said, why are we doing that? Well, let the vendor do that. So we get out of that business. Did a new contract, that was the only change. And then some good old American competition took over, and we had a pretty spirited price battle. And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, that's what made America great. But a byproduct of that was that the huge block of business that the town's contract used to represent was really eroded in terms of the total numbers. To the point where this is a 3-year deal. We're about to enter in July 1, the second year of the 3-year deal. When that 3-year deal is over, we won't even bother to issue another contract because there's just no point anymore. So the question I asked the Board of Health is, why are we in the business at this point? We're really not doing anything effective anymore because the private sector haulers, the Board of Health surprised me, they license the haulers, by the way, under the statute. And I think they told me there was 11, 12, or 13 haulers doing business in town, something like that. So there's a lot of competition going on at the point of where the vendors market homeowners and they select their vendor. I don't really see any need or role for a town contract anymore. Put me in a column of being a fairly firm believer in if the private sector can do something and do it well, government shouldn't. And this is something that the private sector is clearly demonstrating they can do well. And I don't see any reason for us to be in the business. So that's basically what I put in front of the Board of Health. Their response was, Well, we don't have a whole lot really specific to say about it. But if you talk to the private vendor and, he wants to get out of the contract, we don't really have any strong objection. Now, there's two things in that town contract that really pump the price up. And if you take those two things out, then that vendor has an opportunity to reduce price, which means the whole marketplace reduces price, probably, which means the homeowners are going to benefit from this. And the two components that are in that town contract, number one is prevailing wage law, because in Massachusetts, when we issue a contract, the contractor has to pay prevailing wage, and that is typically substantially above what other vendors are required. The law presumes that you're never going to have a situation where you issue a government contract and the same identical service is being provided by non-government contracts. The idea was that there'd be one, and that's why they require this prevailing wage set by the Attorney General. So we've got that prevailing wage in the town contract covering a couple of thousand residents, and it really is a price disadvantage for that vendor, which could be turned into reductions for the homeowner. Second point, we required as a condition of the contract that the successful vendor pick up all town buildings. When it was the case that that contract was 4,000 plus residents, virtually everybody in town, residential, was paying their little share, buried in their price for their residential pickup, of the cost of the town's buildings, school and public buildings. Well, now you've got a situation where very few people are left on that contract, and they're all paying the cost of the town building pickup. Not very fair to them, and frankly, this is really a bit of a contortion of what this was all supposed to be. So the idea was to just cancel the contract and get out of the business. Now, in order to do that, because there is a valid 3-year contract in place, the vendor has to agree. It can't be a unilateral decision by the town. So, following the Board of Health meeting, I put the question to the vendor, and surprisingly, frankly, I thought he'd jump at the chance. But I did say, by the way, because we're very late in the budget season, and I couldn't put the money at this point into the budget to cover the town buildings, I said, we'll let you out of the contract, but you're gonna have to still collect the town buildings for at least another year. And then at the end of this year, I can budget for that. Naturally, that wasn't a terribly attractive component of the deal. So they're mulling it over. I don't know what their decision's gonna be, but that's basically the story.
Okay, one, before John,
Mark, use your microphone.
I'm sorry, well, it's kinda like, go ahead, John.
Kevin, I live and die on contracts, and if somebody signs a contract in good faith, arm's length transaction, and then it doesn't work out for them, I've never known someone to say, well, we feel bad for you, we're gonna let you out of the contract. He
Well,
still
that's
has an obligation to the town.
Sure. No, that's not what I said at all. I could care less about the vendor. He came to me last summer.
Well, tell us how the conversation got
Care less.
started.
Well, the pricing that's in that contract, we issued a contract with the presumption that the winner was going to get 4,000 homeowners, because we've had this contract around for a long
There
time.
was no word called exclusive.
No, absolutely not.
Shame on whoever signed it to not have that.
That's correct.
Okay.
But in the past, when the contract has been let, the same relative number of homeowners stayed in the contract. There was never any substantial deviation. So the competition that occurred on that contract, which was extreme, was indicative of the expectation that the contract, when awarded, history would repeat itself, and there'd be approximately 4,000 customers. All you have to do is look at the bids to see that that was the clear expectation on the part of all the bidders. There was no ambiguity about that. There was no expectation that the value of that contract was going to be cut in half. That was a surprise. Good thing, because at the end of the day, my only concern, and the whole point of the contract, is to create the best deal for the homeowner that the town can create. Otherwise, there is no reason for the town to collectivize the homeowner's business and issue a contract on their behalf. I mean, that's basically what we did. We took all the homeowners' business and said, we're gonna give to somebody all that business, less a very small amount that went to all these other vendors in past years.
But you didn't, because you didn't give them an exclusive right to all the homes in Foxborough.
Yeah, we've never
You
offered an
opened it up to
exclusive.
competition.
Right, we've never,
And he still signed it.
that's correct, that's correct. And if the motive for this was exclusively to give that vendor a way out of the deal he made, that would be probably fair and probably completely appropriate, because it's absolutely unfair what's been done to that vendor, absolutely unfair. And I'm not saying anybody is wrong, but I'm making the observation that years and years and years of multiple RFPs and contracts being awarded, and basically 4,000 customers,
Kevin,
well, let me finish.
It
4,000 customers being awarded to one vendor, and no erosion of that business base. No erosion of it. That's clearly what the expectation was, and that's not what happened. Now, if we're going to require the contract to be at the price point that it's at, to continue to be followed for 2 more years, nothing wrong with that. But the homeowners will pay more than they need to pay. Fact, without a doubt.
Why are you,
Because the-
why are you
because the
saying that?
existence-
Becau-
Because the prevailing wage law in that contract brings the pricing up. Simple as that.
But they're not obligated to go with that vendor year to year to
The
year.
homeowner?
Yeah.
They could
No,
change
but
vendors
about
anytime.
2,000 people are still doing it.
But if they're paying more and there's another option to pay less, they would go to the lesser.
Remove the prevailing wage,
No,
cancel the town contract.
Keep the prevailing wage, keep the same contract. The option is for the homeowner to stay with vendor A or look at vendor B. If vendor B is cheaper, they'll go to vendor B, and vendor A still picks up the
Sure.
town trash.
But remove that town contract, remove the prevailing wage law, that contract goes down, which forces the marketplace to go down. Homeowners win.
Well,
I don't
don't
agree
get
with
that.
that.
hold on,
Yeah.
hold on. Lorraine, you got anything to say? We'll go, Jeannie, you first, I'm sorry.
Well, I just could, when you sign, if you're in business and you sign a contract, you sign a contract. If circumstances change, well, you have to deal with it, and a contract is a contract. That's the way I look at it.
Jeannie and Lorraine?
2 thoughts, really. One question, actually, as I've been, trying to find out information on this. My question has to do with safety regulations for
Separate issue, good point.
Both.
I did mention to the Board of Health that.
government contracts and non-government contract service providers.
The
Are they
OSHA
different?
The
Are they
OSHA rules
different?
apply to everybody in every business
Yeah.
are equal. They don't
Irrespective of whether you are the town contract or another vendor, right now, there are certain requirements that the town contractor has to follow that nobody else does. Board of Health, as the licensing authority for OFFAL, offal haulers or trash haulers, should issue some basic regulations that all haulers have to ascribe to, covering things like the truck doesn't leak and, they're not blowing trash out and things like that. My understanding is that they are in the process of doing that. They've not had regulations in past years. This has been an area that has been recognized as needing work. That's sort of a sidebar that ironically did come up through this, through all of this. And I guess the Board of Health is working on that. That's really not my concern or my business as town manager. That's really their business. But they are working on regs.
Well, the other question I have is, why wouldn't we consider, if this contractor that we have now is willing to step away, why wouldn't we just open this up again for a public bid so that we have the town contract and maybe tie it to these upcoming regulations?
I would
Just
not.
to allow that, competition to happen.
Well, I think there's 2 answers to the question. First, the volume of the business is no longer sufficient to engender any real competition. There's just not enough customers left. It's it's somewhere around half of what it once was, so
Well, when you get,
there's not much
you get a
left.
company that's from, where are they from?
I have no idea.
Somerville.
Somerville.
Okay. You get a company from Somerville traveling a great distance just in fuel costs to be absorbed, to come to a town this far away. As a man of business, it's all about location. I only go a certain range of area. I don't know how anybody can bid, and I have people bid against me in Foxborough that are from Norwell, Duxbury.
Right.
To be competitive, there's just no way you can do that. That's my opinion there. Two, this supersedes you. This has been a train wreck since 1997 when the pay and throw program started. We took it off the federal tax roll, so people didn't get, it was taken off the annual town, help me out here, guys.
Real
I
estate
was taking off
taxes.
the tax.
Take it out of the
Tax
taxes.
roll,
Tax
the annual tax roll, and then you couldn't deduct it on the federal level. Okay? Anybody disagree with that?
Right.
There's been a train wreck since then. And then we had a good company for 10 years doing it, and the contract was never even put out. It was just re-signed every year because the town and the former manager was happy with it.
No, that was bid every 3 years.
That, to my knowledge, was never bid. I could be
No,
wrong.
I
don't
have
think
the
it was ever
RFPs.
bid. I don't think it was ever bid.
No, I have the RFPs, Mark. It was
Okay.
bid. I have them in
By
the office.
Andy?
Yes.
Okay.
I had
I've
to
never
review
heard-
them to write the
They might have
RFP.
been the only respondent, you don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, true. But anyway, so that we had Joe the trash guy for 10 years. Personally, everybody in town knew the guy. He disappears because the company sells the company, gets acquired by another company, and caused havoc all over town. People were not getting their trash picked up, everything, and then we put it out to bid, or we didn't. Yourself put it out to bid, and the bid process was what it was. And it's just a train wreck.
I
In
agree.
my opinion. It's been a train wreck since the day one. I said it was gonna be. I don't think I was the only selectman that said it was gonna be a train wreck. Now it is a train wreck. I think the town absorbed, the payers absorbed those trash piles that disappeared around town, were picked up by the vendor, the former vendor. And so was the town's trash at all the department buildings, including the town hall, everywhere. That's not, now he can't afford, he's losing money, is what it comes down to. So we're gonna stick the sword in this guy's back and make him lose money for a year, like Kevin is suggesting with his thing here, like you're still gonna pick up the municipality trash, but you're out of the contract. Or do we negotiate something? I understand contracts, everybody does, but, you can't continue like this, because the ones that are gonna lose, and they're already losing, are the taxpayers. They've lost 3 times in this issue, starting back in '97. In my opinion, if anybody disagrees with me, that's fine. So,
Just one observation, if I could.
go.
If someone signs a contract, and as you said, things change, and they begin to lose money, do we do this for the next person who's similarly situated, who's losing money? I think it's a bad
The
precedent to
precedent.
set.
Absolutely. You're setting a bad precedence, but the thing is, when you get off the tax roll and you take it out of the handling of the town who handles it and rewards the bid, supervise the bid, if the town's gonna be involved, it has to be fully involved. It can't be, okay, the Board of Health inspects,
I agree with you there,
The
right.
Board of Health inspects all the septic system trucks in this town, so I would imagine they inspect, I would presume they would inspect all the trash trucks, recycle trucks in this town. If they don't, then why are they inspecting septic trucks but not trash trucks? They're both hauling hazardous waste. So, the thing is, we gotta come to an agreement here where you can place the blame here, place the blame there. It's not gonna solve anything for anybody. We need to get rid of this. And if the board doesn't wanna let the man out of the contract, or have him, let's say he comes in front of the board and we talk about this, what's the board? And I'm in the opinion of my own to try and make this go away.
Mark, just so I can help here, this is not a board decision, so no votes are required of the board. This was just, Jim wanted me to give the board an info update. This is strictly in the town manager's lane and as the procurement officer. What I'm telling you as the town manager is, I don't know why we ever got into this business. I don't know. This is not a business. Either the town picks up the trash and has a contract for everyone, similar to what Sharon does. That's what Sharon does. There's only one vendor. Or the town has trash trucks and workers and provides that as a service, which get paid through your taxes, and therefore you can deduct it federally. This sort of hybrid thing that we're doing, I think you put exactly the right word on it. It's a train wreck. And I think the faster the town of Foxborough gets out of this train wreck, the better it will be for one single entity, and it's the only entity I care about, the homeowners who are paying the bill. That's all I care about.
Kevin, just through the chair.
One other, if I could, just to, so people don't forget this, you're saying that the homeowner is is feeling the pain right now from this billing, yet.
No, we dropped prices.
Right, but the taxpayer is still gonna have to come up with $30,000 to pick up the town's trash, so that the taxpayer's gonna feel the pain one way or the other.
Well, it's either the 6,000 plus homeowners who pay their proportionate share of the trash collection, or it's this very small number of people who are left on the so-called town contract. So somebody has to pay the bill. Yes, we have to pick the trash up at town buildings, but it's an equity question at this point. You know, again, when 4,000 or 5,000, when basically every homeowner in town was under this one contract, and under that contract, they paid their little share of all the town buildings to be picked up, fair deal. But you don't have that anymore. Now you have a very small number of homeowners who are on the town contract, and they're paying to pick up the town buildings.
One wonders in a free market why they're still doing that.
Well, and there's the dilemma, because if the pattern continues every time the re-enrollment occurs and the private vendor keeps losing money, I will tell you right now, something's gonna have to give. And I'm not exactly sure what that is, but, you know, we did not give an exclusive contract, but we did, obviously, there was a representation and a expectation that the bidders had every right to have, because there'd been plenty of prior bidding, of the exclusivity of it, and that went away. So, reasonably speaking, I think we have entered an age when we need to turn this over to the private sector, turn it over to the marketplace, let competition and the free market system set the price. It'll do a good job. The homeowners will probably pay even less, and everybody will go away happy.
Jimmy?
If we don't do that, then I will predict for you right now that I think there will be further repercussions in the future, put it that way.
We all know where it's gonna go. Jim, you got something?
Has the vendor, has Russell contacted you and said we want out of the contract?
No, I called him, and as I say, I was shocked that his first
So,
words
so
were
if we've got
absolutely.
a 3-year contract, we're finishing up the first, and is part of that contract a bond? If they walk, they have to pay the town a couple $100,000?
There is a bond in place, yeah, I don't know what the provisions of it
So
are.
why would we rattle the cage if there was a situation where there was a handful of vendors that pulled out the RFP? Some didn't respond because I think they were aware that it wasn't a guaranteed number. So
I don't think anybody pulled out on that basis.
I would guess that they did.
Well, they didn't tell us that, and we have lots of bids.
Okay.
We
So,
did have
we've got
information
we've
that
got
a
a-
few that showed up for the pre-bid conference didn't end up bidding, but it was for very different reasons. It wasn't because of any fear that the business, the block of business would erode. Nobody said that.
So we have a contract for 2 more years. We've got a bond if they leave, then they have to pay the town. We have a contract that requires them to pick up the trash from the municipal buildings, and there's no requirement that any resident, Mary Jones, can stay, they can go with somebody else. It's free bid. Why would the town ever give that up? It seems like that's the best position. And if it was that bad, why wouldn't they be banging on our door saying they want out? Why are we going to them saying, do you want out? And then they're still saying, not really. And why are we going to the Board of Health trying to say, well, we think we can get a better deal? If you look at the trash rates for other towns, we're one of the lower ones.
Yes, I
So-
think,
so-
I think,
So
I
we've
think
got
it
a
was-
contractor, a vendor that based it on this. We've got another vendor, and the other ones were all right there.
right.
How is the price gonna go lower? I can't imagine it's gonna go lower. Why not just wait it out 2 more years, and then we'll revisit it and do it the right way, which we should have done a year ago?
Well, the marketplace will take care of this in 2 years, irrespective of what I do.
I think the
Because
marketplace took
no
care of
one-
it already, though, Kevin,
no
didn't it?
one will bid this contract in 2 years. The contract is based upon a presumption of a certain block of business, and that has now been shown to be not the case. So no one is going to bid that anymore, because our RFP is filled, it's heavy with regulation, requirements, and all sorts of things that
So
make
Kevin, what
that
I'm saying is,
vendor-
if the
Well,
town got a
let me
heck of a
finish.
deal, why would we go backwards?
Why would we go back, what are you saying?
Why would we initiate the contract to be broken
'Cause it's
while we
getting-
do
I
nothing?
think I can answer that.
Because we already have,
Up in
ex-
court.
we've already, well, thank you, I didn't
All
say,
good.
I didn't say
We're
that,
all good.
I didn't say that, but
How?
thank you for saying it.
I need to know the mechanism for that one.
Jim, let me just illustrate for the board a picture here. So, the current vendor, who has no reason to expect that the block of business the town said, here it is, was going to significantly erode. He had no reason to think that. But it did, and it continues to erode. And when it gets to the point, which could be in the very near future, because we're coming up on renewals again of contracts, and it gets to the point where the town vendor is required to maintain this pricing, in a marketplace where he no longer has the volume of business that allowed him to do that, and he starts to fully on hemorrhage as opposed to bleed a little, something is going to happen. I don't know what, but I do know enough about this sort of thing that we are what's referred to as a deep pocket, meaning we're great people to sue, the town, because towns tend, during lawsuits, because our insurance company does, it's not us, they tend to make business decisions and pay lots of money to settle the lawsuit. And people who sue towns know that. So I'm painting a picture which is not a happy one, but it's where I see things potentially going, as Mark just said. I see utterly no reason for the town to risk that scenario. I see nothing benefiting the taxpayers of this community to take that risk. None. I see the very real possibility that the town vendor, with a couple of thousand folks, released from the requirement to maintain prevailing wage law and all the other things that are in RFP, can now reduce his pricing, which causes other vendors to reduce theirs, which saves the homeowners money. And I think that's a very real possibility. But even if it doesn't happen, where this is all going is not in the townspeople's best interest. Now, I can sit here and not guide you and be derelict in my job and not tell you that's where I see it going and just let it go, or I can tell you what I'm seeing. And that is why, and I frankly didn't want to get into the whole litigation thing, but Mark said it, and so I'd be less than honest if I didn't say honestly that I think that's a real possibility, and I don't want to see that happen. So, I don't really see why there is any utility anymore for us to be in this business. Now, ironically, the vendor may still be making money, and he may say, I don't want out of the contract. And I'm going to say, fine, you own it.
All right.
Again, I just go back to my safety concerns. So now we have two vendors
Two major vendors, yeah.
managing most of the town. So what's happening is those two sets of trucks, we have twice as many trucks coming through our town. So twice as many opportunities for there to be an incident of some kind, whether it's a leak, whether it's a crash, or,
I've
something.
encouraged the
So-
Board of Health to look at that issue and do what other towns have done and establish regulations for pickup routes on certain days so that all vendors are required to pick up in a regulated pattern, so truck traffic is minimized. You don't have, 15 trucks coming down your street every day because there's 15 different haulers. Hopefully, they're going to address that problem.
But that's my concern, is if you let them walk away, let the current vendor walk away from the contract, then any number of trucks can be
Could be multiplied.
driving down our streets.
You
So-
already have that. You already have
Right.
15 haulers. I think 15.
But the majority are handled by two, and
Yeah, but
ideally, if we only had one set of trucks going through our streets, I think from a safety standpoint would be the best option. Is there something preventing us from asking for an exclusive or offering an
Yes.
exclusive?
Yes.
What is it?
Well, I had that discussion with the Board of Health also, and had town council come in because Dick actually crafted the bylaw that allows Sharon to do it. In order to have an exclusive contract, you have to have a bylaw, because people have to, the reason our contract can't be binding is because the people haven't transferred to the town the right to bind them. That's what a bylaw would do. A bylaw would say, we the people say, the town government can bid a contract on our behalf, and we agree, whoever wins it, wins it. We don't have a bylaw like that. So, I had the discussion with the Board of Health if they were interested, and they thought that was just nothing that would ever be in favor in Foxborough. We're too independent, and they wouldn't be interested in having the government control a single contract. So I dropped that like a hot potato.
Okay, you all set? Junior?
One more question. Kevin, you said that if you were to release Russell from the contract, you would thereby release him from prevailing wage obligations, which would then allow him to lower his prices, which would then make him more competitive. That tells me that he still intends to be a hauler in town, but an independent hauler,
Don't know.
Point.
which means we're still gonna have the same number of trucks on our roads.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a
I
very
agree.
good
Yeah.
point.
You still gotta pay the prevailing wage if you're doing the schools.
If you gotta speak, let's speak in the mic, please.
No, he doesn't have to pay prevailing wage. If he's released from the contract, he's released wholly from the contract. His obligation with respect to picking up the town buildings would be contained in a letter, and we would require him to do that. He's not getting released from that, because I can't make that change in the budget at this point. And if he says that's a showstopper for him, then it's a showstopper. He's gonna keep picking up, and
So
he's gonna
is this,
follow the
it just seems like it's a way to make this vendor more competitive.
Is what, I'm sorry?
Is this an attempt to make this vendor more competitive?
I could care less about the vendor. This is all about the people of this community, A, potentially getting a cheaper price, and B, avoiding where this is going. I will tell you right now, this is not gonna have a happy end.
What does?
And I don't mean from the point of view of the private haulers, I mean from the point of view of exactly what Mark talked about.
Jeannie?
But, Kevin, they haven't, Russell has not approached the town of Foxborough to say it wants to get out of the contract.
Russell approached the town back in, I'm gonna say January, maybe December, something like that, to say that the way this had all happened was very unfortunate, and that, you know, he was experiencing some real difficulty. He didn't specifically ask to be let out of the contract. He really talked about the fact that Foxborough has no regulations, and that his competition was not being required to do any of the things that he was required. And he said, in all the towns that he does business in, this is completely singular. He said he's never seen a town that has no regulations. His request to the Board of Health staff, and through them to the Board of Health, was that they establish regulations that would level the playing field. And they are doing that.
Well, I think the operative word here is unfortunate. I mean, the fact that he signed the contract, he's not approaching the town saying that we're gonna sue, we want out of the contract.
That's correct, yeah. And he
So-
may not want out.
Well, this-
So- So I don't understand why you're willing to change the terms of the contract if the trash hauler is not complaining to, complaining and threatening to break the contract.
For the very simple reason, there is no advantage to the town to maintain the contract any longer. We are not advantaged in any way.
My trash is being picked up. I'm paying, my trash is being picked up. I understand that, it's a 3-year contract, I believe, right? And
2 more years, yes,
2
3
years, and I know it's gonna, and I believe it's gonna go up next year and the, but that price is set. I'm not gonna be paying any more for my trash. I mean, if 500 more people drop out, it doesn't make any difference for the next 2 years. My price is set. So how can you say that it's going to be an onerous burden to the shrinking number of people who are dealing with Russell?
That's the point, Jenny. If the erosion in the value of the town contract were to continue, I don't know if it will or not, but were it to continue, the vendor acting cannot maintain that pricing. They can't. And so.
But he has a
something
contract. He has, you know what, Kevin? You win some, you lose some. I mean, that's why you have attorneys when you're writing contracts. This company's been in business for a long time. This company picks up Walpole. It's not like we're the only town it comes down to, from Somerville.
Oh, we know, they're well
I mean-
qualified. Yeah, they're well qualified.
They're picking up my trash. I know how much I'm gonna pay for the next 2 years. You win some, you lose some. Maybe they should get a new lawyer or something, I don't know. I mean, unless the town promised them something that, in the RFP, that the town really couldn't deliver, would that be a basis of a lawsuit? And if that's the case, shame on the person who wrote the RFP.
There's nothing in the RFP that creates, that guarantees an expectation of maintaining the business. There is every presumption from the RFP and the history that precluded it, and the discussion, the pre-bid conference, the discussions that took place, the awarding of the contract. There is every reason for all of the vendors to have expected that the value of the contract, the number of contracts with individual homeowners, would be maintained, relatively speaking. And that has changed in an extremely dramatic manner. And that is the nature of my concern.
Ginny, any more?
Well, it may be your concern, but Russell isn't beating down the door saying that we want out of this contract. This is why I think you're being a little premature in this. I mean, we can't be operating on the thought that maybe we're going to get sued. That's something I hear way too often. Maybe we're going to get sued. And then you just say, well, maybe Russell has no problem with the contract and will continue for the next 2 years until the end of the contract. And then he can decide whether he wants to bid again or not. I was brought up, a contract is a contract. Just if you're the beneficiary of the contract, you better make sure it's written correctly to your benefit. And if you don't, you win some, you lose some.
In my work every day, I worry about the town getting sued constantly. That's part of my continual concern. And trying to avoid that, trying to be sure the town doesn't get sued is one of the things I do. And fortunately, have some good success in heading those things off. Now, I'm not saying in a public meeting that we're going to get sued. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that a fair application of common sense to the situation leads one to conclude that there are a number of possibilities in the future, and frankly, none of them are good for the town. So, that's my concern. And if it were the case that I saw some big advantage, if there was some big benefit being maintained, then I would say, oh, well, too bad. I've said that to dozens of contractors. I don't hesitate to say that. You know me. Seriously? You think I'd hesitate?
Okay.
Could care less about the contractor. But I'm very concerned with the town's welfare and where this is all headed. So it's been a question. It's not a decision that's been made. It's been a question that's been asked. And so far, the answer is he doesn't want out of the contract. And as long as that's the answer, then there'll be no change in the situation until 2 years from now. And in 2 years, we will be out of the business.
So what's the problem?
Well, I think I've said it.
I think he's saying he's anticipating a problem. If the board is in mind, there's 3 people waving out there that want to speak. So, Mac, you want to go first? Obviously, names for the record, please, address.
Tim McCarthy from 387 South Street. I was at the meeting last week with the Board of Health. I was embarrassed. The people sitting at the Board of Health voted. They didn't even know what they were voting on to give Kevin permission to dump a contract that they thought they were in charge of. That night, they had no idea they were in charge of the hauler. I asked Kevin. He said he signed the contract. I said, that means you're responsible, not them. He said, you're right. And then I said, then why is the board voting? Then I said, if you're going to offer out of the contract, have you heard from them at all? He says, no. Then I heard the board said, we'll call their bluff. Call a bluff on a contract? I mean, come on. So then I went and did my homework. In the Reporter, it says Kevin quoted, Russell contacted him to get out of the contract. This was in the Fox Reporter, April 11th. So they did try to get out of it. They want to get out of their contract. They notified him.
Again, with all due respect, sir, that's in the press. I'm not sure where that came from. I don't know where the quote came from. There were 7 or 8 people in the meeting. And by God, if I have to bring the 7 or 8 people here, I'll bring them here. There wasn't a request to get out of the contract. There was a request for the Board of Health to have regulations which would level the playing field because the town vendor was being required to perform at a much higher level due to the requirements of the RFP than the private haulers that are not in the town contract. And that translates directly into much higher costs for the town contractor. When it was the case that the town was offering 4,000 homeowners business, that was fine. It is no longer the case. Something is going to give in all this. I'm not exactly sure where and how it's going to give, but it is going to. There are already lawsuits filed. Already. And I've been able to keep the town out of it. I make no guarantee that that will continue to be the case. I'm not saying this is a solution. I'm saying I'm looking into it. I'm considering it. Because at the end of the day, the only thing I care about is keeping this town out of expensive litigation. And the whole idea of this contract in the first place was to get the homeowner a good deal. And we've done that. We actually dropped prices quite dramatically. An opportunity potentially to both keep the town out of trouble and drop prices of the homeowner again. I don't know the answer yet. I'm just exploring it. And by the way, that's all this agenda item was, Mr. Chairman, was just to make a quick 5-minute report.
Well, I guess some questions got raised by the 5-minute report that need to be asked. And I guess that's why it's on the agenda.
I would have brought all this stuff if I'd known we were gonna get into this depth. I apologize, I didn't.
I anticipated that we were gonna get some, good debate on this. As soon as I saw it, there's gonna be some good debate on this one. So I would think that Mr. Siegel has something to say.
Howard Siegel, 3 Catherine Road, private citizen. So a couple comments for the board. First of all, there's a reason why we have a contract. And the reason we have a contract is so that everybody in town's covered. Most of us live in a neighborhood, but there are people who don't live in a neighborhood. They live on a long street. They live up a big hill. If you get rid of a contract and there's 2 or 1 residential hauler in town, and although I think we heard that there were 18, I think the majority of the work is done, 99.9% of the residential work is done by 2 haulers. And so when you have a contract, everybody in town's protected. You live on a big hill, someone still comes and gets your garbage. If we have no contract whatsoever, it's a free-for-all. If I don't like Jenny, I don't go pick up her garbage. There's no contract. I don't have to go to your house. I don't like you. I don't like the way you voted on something. So the reason we have a contract is so that everybody's covered in the whole town to have their garbage picked up. And that's why we have a contract. I'd be interested to know if the town manager surveyed the surrounding communities. How many communities surrounding this area have no town contract in garbage? Are there any?
Norfolk.
We didn't.
know.
We didn't do any surveys. I don't know. I know that. Town trash collection, refuse collection done as a town service, is fairly common.
Right.
Because you pay for it through your taxes and you can deduct it, and that's basically the theory.
It's the only way to do it.
Right. A number of communities since Prop 2.5 passed have gotten out of the business. I don't have any statistics for how many have and how many haven't. I know there's been a lot of work done in the area of regionalizing. The city of Braintree, Quincy, and Weymouth issued a single blanket contract on behalf of all homeowners. And they did it, and they did some fantastic pricing for their citizens. But that was a very complicated effort, and it's a single vendor contract. How many towns issue a contract, I can't tell you. I can tell you that a lot do, and it tends to be the case that if the town issues a contract, then that vendor gets 80-90% of the work. That tends to be the case. We are the anomaly where we have a so-called contract, but the base that supports that pricing has now basically been destroyed.
Yeah.
It's not there.
We've definitely heard that. Howard, one thing to reply to you, back when they started closing all the dumps, we all had the dumps when we were kids. We're always playing in them, grabbing stuff, bringing bikes home. Your dad got pissed off every day, okay? What happened after that happened, and they started closing the dumps? People just started throwing the trash, their couches. You see it on the end of Granite Street. You see it in the parking lots overnight. You see it everywhere. People just throw their trash wherever they want when they can't get rid of it. That's why it is a Board of Health and a Selectmen. It's going to be a Selectmen issue because that's what's going to happen if it gets out of hand. You absolutely got some good points there. It happened before, it'll happen again. People go to my dumpsters and my job sites, and the only thing that they're not too smart about is they would put their mail in it, and then they fill my dumpster with their furniture and household trash. Happens all the time. Then I have to explain to my vendor why there's rubber tires and everything else in there. It's a big problem, trash. So then all of a sudden, you either knock on the other door and say, remove your trash, or you contact the police department. Because you can't be picking up the bill for everybody. It needs to be addressed by the town. As much as you think, my opinion, that we need to get out of it, I think we need to be back involved, is my opinion. And then put it forward, back on the tax roll, get it taken care of, have a good contract. What we do with this contract, I don't know. It's obviously not a board's decision, according to Mr. Pagos. But we got some input on it, and we got to address this. So I don't know if we want to put this on the agenda going forward, how we're going to address this, or do we even have that, is that our venue? Go ahead.
I'd suggest if we would consider not making any change to the contract, let's hear the Board of Health regulations if they come forward.
Yeah.
And, and have a discussion about that, because again, thinking about just safety and the numbers of trucks coming through the town, if that were to increase by changing this contract situation, I would be very concerned about that. So I think just as step one, look at the Board of Health regulations and discuss that with them.
The thing, Lorraine, is there is no standing law or anything, or bylaw that says we can tell people who can come in and out and how many trucks
Right,
are on the
I
street.
understand.
That's the only issue there. I'm more concerned with protecting, in a half hour ago, we're talking about cleaning up the town, and now we're gonna have a situation where if people's trash don't get picked up, you got summer coming, you got maggots, you got flies, it's a Board of Health issue. I think the board should bring the Board of Health, board in here. Does anybody agree? Have a
Absolutely.
discussion. James? No? What do you think?
I think we're running scared for no reason. We've got a contract for 2 years. As vendor says he's not interested in closing it. There's a bond if he walks away for $200,000. We've got 2 qualified vendors that are working in town, taking care of the trash. If one leaves, the other one gets a hell of a lot of more business and vice versa. That's what contracts are for. And I think the town's getting a hell of a deal, and I think we're running around panicking, crying wolf for something that's not gonna happen. The irony is, we didn't go with the low bidder, we went with the more qualified bidder, because they've got more experience, they're a bigger company, and supposedly they had more attorneys and more, breadth to their company. If they signed a contract, and there's nowhere on that contract that said there was a guaranteed limit, shame on them. If they wanna come back and say they screwed up, can we consider it? Maybe we'll consider it. But what's all the panic for right now? I just don't see it.
I think you made a very good point, but I don't think it's like the panic of now. I think this situation's been going on for a year, and I think there's a lot of, people fed up with it. The whole conversation, I think people, it got off as a train wreck, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. I think now people want some conclusion. I don't think.
See, I think it's getting better.
Yeah.
You think?
I think so. I think all the anxiety at the beginning has settled out. People chose which horse they want to ride on. They can switch at any time, and another contractor came up. That's the free market. So what are we going to do? Say it's not working because we're anticipating somebody's getting hurt, even though there's a contract. So we're going to pull that back and mix it all up. That's where I think where the problem's going to come. I think everything's settled right now.
I don't
My trash
think,
is being, I totally agree with what Jim said a few minutes ago. Contract's a contract. My trash is being picked up. I have no problems. I have not had anyone complain to me, and no matter what hauler they're using, I have not heard any complaints about trash. The first thing I heard about a problem with the trash is when I opened the Foxborough Reporter and saw an article about trash. That's the first time I heard about that. And I have not had anybody complain to me about anything.
Okay.
And this is what I don't understand what the problem is.
I went back, I read the contract today. I went back, it was thick. There was nothing in there, I be it a layman, nothing in there that even came close to saying, we've got X amount of guaranteed mailboxes out there.
There's nothing in there, nothing in that.
So,
I wrote that,
Yeah.
there's nothing in there about that.
so let's move on. To bring the Board of Health in here, where they've already gone through, and, I heard what that meeting was about. They basically said they wasn't sure and go with whatever Kevin says. Kevin gave us an update. I don't see the issue. I really don't.
But just so the board's aware, I think panic is the wrong word, Jim. There's no panic here. I'm just looking into the situation, trying to discern what the smart way is to go. That's all
No,
I'm saying.
I'm not saying you're panicked. We're talking maggots in summer, and this table seems to be panicking over something that I don't think is an issue.
I just see it.
One thing I can tell you is if the contract, whether it continues or it doesn't continue, there's a lucrative business here. Someone's going to pick up everybody's trash. It's not gonna be the case.
But the whole thing is, as long as it ain't Backyard Charlie from Walpole, when I go up there and he's picking it up and throwing it down the high-tension roads,
That's the
my
job,
point.
I know, but that's the job of the Board of Health, and those are the regulations that we need, and communities typically have these. It is unusual that we don't have them, and I think it's just because it's something that hasn't gotten around to.
Train never gets
I just don't want us to back out of the contract.
Well, part of why I think Jim put
I think the
this on
regulations are good.
was so that you could give me some input, and I could hear what you're saying. And I appreciate that, and that, that's important. That's why I went to the Board of Health, by the way. I didn't have to go to the Board of Health. I went to them for the specific reason of seeking their advice and getting their input as I'm trying to get my arms around this situation and do the smart thing for the town.
You get the last word, brother.
All right, is it possible for us to give Kevin direction to sit tight and observe but take no action? Can we do that?
No, not that I think of. Challenge, he's under his
I think
purview.
It's
He knows-
strong.
I
he
think,
knows
I
what we
think he
think.
understands.
I've
where-
heard what
I think he
you've
understands
said.
where we're coming from. Okay, wanna move on?
Yep.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, being about an hour behind schedule, town manager annual performance review, salary adjustment.
I can't tell you how glad I am that this is on after the last discussion. Timing is everything.
And you know what, Kevin, I
It
will
was
give
worse last meeting, it was worse the
you
last
did the
meeting
agenda.
before that.
I'll give you the option as the chair to move it to the next meeting or have it now after this.
No.
Okay, let's move on then.
Just, let's get it done. Let's
All
get
right.
it done.
Who would like to speak first in this matter, Kevin or the board?
I
Do you have anything to say?
Don't make a request. I don't ever do that.
Okay. I'm
I
gonna
can
go-
just give a summary of that.
Yep, I'm gonna go
how we
right to
got
you.
here. Kevin has a contract, it's a 4-year contract. This is the 3rd year. We did the salary, the goals and objectives is performance review for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Those are all documented. First year, kind of hand in hand with umbrella over the town. We looked at zeros and ones, zeros and threes, and 1.5s. And so the first year of Kevin's contract, I believe he got a 0, correct?
Yes.
Second year of his contract, there was a little dispute on the contract. We negotiated a 2%? 3%. Not to be considered a raise, not to be considered a merit or a step. It was an adjustment in a disagreement in the contract, so that was taken out of the picture. Subsequently to that, we voted for the 2nd year for a performance salary review vote, and you also got a 0 for the 2nd year. Now we're on the 3rd year of his performance review. I'm sorry, his salary review, based on the performance review that we did 2 meetings ago. So that, I think that, I did it more for John's benefit, because you hadn't been involved. So I don't know who prepared this, but I think this is,
I just put together a sliding scale to show examples of what a 2%
And
increase
based on
represents,
his
based on
base
his current
salary.
base
Okay.
salary. And it's 2, 2.5, 3, 3.25, 3.5 for consideration.
Yes, sir.
The last increase, that was last year, correct? And now, I'm just trying to get a feel for what the performance review was and what the merit increase was.
Well, Lorraine prepared that, and we all put our input to Lorraine, and then she brought it and summarized it. So I think I'd have her speak to that. if you would
So,
like to.
taking everybody's comments and scores and compiling it, the overall outcome was that Kevin meets expectations and for performance for the past year. I believe the prior year also met expectations. There was a 0% increase that year. I think a lot of people were getting 0% that year. So this year now, it looks like we are starting to give increases. So I put together this spreadsheet just to give an idea. In the industry I work in, meets expectations is typically seeing a 3% increase. From my experience, anywhere from 3 to 3.25. So, that's why I've got these different percentages listed this way. So I think, considering that this is a year we are giving increases, potentially, I think we should talk about an increase for Kevin. I
And
think
the-
his work in finance and just execution of tasks is excellent and should be recognized.
Just so everyone listening, the COLA, the foundation COLA this year for town employees
Foundation COLA is 2%.
2%.
But
Jimmy?
what you may not know is that was that dispute that we had in his contract because Andy Gala received the COLA every year, even though his contract says he wasn't.
It was in his contract, in Andy's contract, and Randy's contract, I thought.
It was not in Kevin's contract,
Right.
and I think
Right.
Kevin
Assumed to be.
assumed it
presumed.
was gonna be in
Right.
there, and that's where it automatically came to
Mm.
his paycheck. And to the credit of Kevin, he noticed that was in his paycheck, he brought it to our attention, and then he paid it back. And then we got into the discussion, well, is an assumption part, because it was done in the past, did he just assume it? And we went back to the negotiations. So we came to the conclusion, well, he does not get a COLA, but he got a lump at the beginning to recognize that there was a discrepancy based on past years. So where we stand right now, this is whatever the number is, 0 up to 100, is his merit raise. Nothing to do with COLA.
Correct.
So when all the other employees get a cost of living increase, Kevin does not.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Anything else, John?
Nope.
Ginny?
No, I'll reserve my questions for later.
Well, there might not be a later if somebody makes a motion.
I'm listening.
Okay. Well, it's out there. Has anybody got anything in mind?
I'm suggesting considering 3 to 3.25 because of, again, the strength in financial management. The benefit to the town has been significant, upwards of 7 figures. And I think that needs to be recognized, recognizing certainly the issues that have been brought to Kevin's attention for performance. And I think our discussion last time, about his evaluation, he acknowledged some of our criticisms that we have. I think that when an employee meets standards and the organization has the ability to do so, I think it should be recognized.
Jimmy?
I've been playing too much chairman from this side, so I'm gonna sit back a little
No,
bit.
I want to hear what you have to say. What are you thinking? I mean, Lorraine gave us a spreadsheet. We got multiple choice. I mean, let's blend our thoughts here and see what we can.
I'm kind of, it's a separate contract, but I agree there's been some highs and some lows, but with 5 members, it came out to meets expectations. and I don't know the answer, I'm gonna ask the board, when everyone else meets expectations in this town, the first year was a 0, the second was a 3, they got a 1.5. That was meeting expectations. This year, what is everybody getting? That,
Well, are we at liberty to say?
The COLA, the cost of living adjustment, is for the non-union is 2%.
okay.
The police contract is public, and it's a special situation, I think we can say fairly, so it's not indicative. The merit component, which will affect all non-union employees this year for the first time, those merit reviews will be in July, similar process to what you did. If they meet expectations, which would be a score probably 70 to 90, something like that, they will not get anything beyond the COLA.
Which is 2%.
Correct. They must be achieving at a significantly high level in order to receive merit consideration. And then the plan, which is just being finalized, that we're going to be putting on your desk, I hope at your next meeting, or at least give to you before the next meeting, whether it gets on the agenda or not, would then say that within a certain band, if performance was good enough, it'd get 1.25. And if it was extraordinary, it would get 2.5. So I would say to you that for the other non-union employees, meets expectations, I realize I'm killing myself here, but meets expectations is not good enough to get merit.
Okay.
Anything else, Jim?
And I just go back to, a manager's, the way that they manage in working with people, above, below, but if the average of what people are getting are 2%, and collectively we rated Kevin as average, then it needs to be 2%. And I understand in the private sector, it's 3 and above. Unfortunately, we're in the public sector, and I'm probably, one of Kevin's biggest critics, and I come down on the conservative side. But unless there's a big argument where Kevin is overperforming to go up past the average, why go through the exercise of doing the reviews that we do? If he came up above average, then he would get above average. So there's a dynamic between private and your, public sector and private, but keeping a management in a level with everyone else. I have a hard time seeing how we can go past 2%.
Again, Mark, if I may, and I know I'm stabbing myself here, but I want you to do this right. Whatever the outcome is, I want it done right.
Mm-hmm.
I am not in the non-union system, so you don't give me the 2% automatically because I'm performing at an acceptable or an average level. Acceptable or average for the other non-union employees gets them nothing. The cost of living adjustment is your way of saying, and we do that together. Under the charter, I propose a number, and you say, yeah, sounds good or not, part of the budget exercise. The cost of living is put in there only for one reason, to make the value of their wage not erode relative to inflation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not under that system. I'm under a very different system. The system I'm under as an executive, I hope, is that if my performance is at a level where you say that deserves more compensation, then you give it to me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't give me a raise just because you don't want my salary to erode with respect to inflation. So I would not encourage you to give me anything if it's for the purpose of the COLA similar to what the other non-union employees are getting. I'm in a completely different place. And it's critical that be maintained, because my objectivity to recommend a COLA to you every year, I cannot have in the back of my head that I'm going to get that. That's why we changed my contract, so that I would not be conflicted out in any way. I could do what was right for the non-union employees, and I would not be conflicted because I'm in a totally different place with respect to the system. So,
Understood, thank you.
Jay? You wanna go next one?
Yeah, John can go.
John?
Yeah, following the guidelines for satisfactory performance meets expectations without a COLA. I think 2%, I mean, the guidelines take us to that number. That 2% would be appropriate.
Ready?
That's it.
Ginny, you're next.
Oh, well, no, I'm relying on past experience plus business experience. My business background is from a family-owned business, and believe me, we did things totally different from the way Merritt raised. And so what I'm relying on is Jim's input, John's input, and they both came up with the same figure, so I believe you came up with that. Yeah, so I could go along with that.
Okay. I think we kind of see where the board's going, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make it. It's as of July 1. Is that your contract?
It's as of this July 1.
This July 1,
What-
okay.
What do I
You got
think?
some input?
I mean, you know what, I'm not gonna disagree or beat it to death. I think, I can repeat what you said, and I can repeat what John said. There's been, you know, there's been some real good work, like Lorraine stated. It's already been stated, and there's been some train wrecks, you know, there really have been. And, if I can count the votes like I try and do at this table all the time, you're seeing twos everywhere, why even move it on? It's where I see it going, so, I mean, that's,
Yeah, the only reason I add, because if you are adamant on a different path, that may influence somebody else.
No,
that's
you
all.
know, I respect the board's views, and, I think it's in a good position right now. And like I said, I try not to be repetitive, so.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion, I think John,
Okay, I'll move that the town of Foxborough increase Kevin Pecos, our town manager's salary effective July 1st, 2013, his base salary by 2%.
and, is there a second?
I'll second motion.
And discussion, Lorraine, would you like to explain to the world what that entails at 2%? Because you made
Yeah.
this nice spreadsheet for us.
Based on the current base salary of $148,320, 2% represents $2,966.40. So the new salary rate will be new base salary will be $151,286.40. That's assuming I have the pennies correct on your base salary, so.
Any more discussion?
I just wanted to make one suggestion. I think, having gone through the compiling of the evaluation, thank you for setting up that form last year, Jim, the way it was set up. One thing I've noticed is that I think the form could use some rework maybe for the next evaluation, because it's very difficult when you blend in intangible performance with every goal and objective. It's like I really think it should be a separate category in and of itself, so that it all ends up with different weights. I think we need help.
You could have a
We
cap,
need
you
help
could have a
doing-
capstone metric that's not attached to anything else.
Yeah, so, I think that in that way, it makes it more likely that as you look at compiling these things, certainly we saw 4s from one person and 1 from another person in the same category, perhaps related to the intangible aspect of it. So I think by coming up with a different format, which I think maybe we need outside help to do that, I think would be appropriate going forward for, executive positions, because there is that intangible thing that is so important to identify. But I think the weight of the impacts also has to be looked at.
I think I'm good. Oh, I thought you were gonna say something.
Yeah, it was.
I agree with that, because it was a little frustrating, I won't repeat it. But you need to be cognizant that spreadsheet came from one attorney, Kevin's attorney and our attorney, going back and forth, and it's a legal document that got attorney-sized, and that's how we ended up with it. So, to make the change, I'm sure what Kevin's gonna say is he's gonna have to talk to his attorney, and so when we were kinda handcuffed with that, because it was a legal dispute on a contract, that's how we ended up with that.
Yeah.
And I think you all recognize when 2 attorneys and 5 members and an employee get involved, by the time it started out this big, ends up this big, and it's it's somewhat unworkable right now, to get anything other than balance sometimes.
Yeah. Well, again, I think just from a human resources standpoint now, that having a HR input in addition to the attorney size of it will potentially make it a better tool, more effective tool for us to use for the next time.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. Okay.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you all.
Through that.
Let's go to action. And I'm going to turn right to my right like I always do and say, okay, Lorraine, what did you find wrong in the minutes? That's the first thing. Interface, here we go.
Everything looked fine. Are you okay with everything, Jim?
Anybody see anything they want to change?
Was it 2 meeting minutes? Which one are we looking
Yeah,
at?
We got
April
the first
16.
one, April 16th.
Yeah, I did have comments on it, I just can't find it.
In the back, the sexual abuse policy.
We lost our audience except for our beloved Frank Mortimer.
Couple of friends.
Yeah, well,
Here it is. You know what, I'll give these to you, but just quickly. The meeting was opened at 6:15 at the Boyden Library, not 7, so it was called to order at 6:15 at the Boyden and then 7 at the Town Hall. Second paragraph under citizens' input I had regarding hiring practices of fire departments, the develops informs him that the employment issues regarding specific employees cannot be discussed due to open meeting law concerns. That was when the gentleman came up and was talking about his issue.
trying to be hired.
Yeah.
Well, why wasn't he hired yet?
And just, I think, Lorraine, Ginny, I'm sorry, when you voted on the housing bill, it was 401. You abstained, or you voted against for more information?
I
Abstained. Okay, so that's okay. I know. And this is going back to Kevin's contract. We had a statement on page 7. It said, Mr. DeVellis thinks that the contract language may need to be reviewed in June. I think what I said was it needs to be referred to, because that was a question about May and June.
Yeah,
I don't think it needs to be reviewed. But most of it is just small things, if you want to pass it down to.
Okay.
So motion to approve the minutes of April 16th, 2013 as amended.
Motion made, get a second?
Second.
Second by Ginny. Any more discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second set of minutes, I'm gonna turn to Ginny.
Yeah.
Anything, Ginny, that you saw?
No.
James, anybody?
Just on the last page, this was the issue of Bridgewater, West Bridgewater. And we gave some direction to Randy that if he looked at the letter and agreed to it, we would send a letter. So just on the bottom of the last large paragraph, where it says, Mr. Pecos will have Mr. Scollins review the request. If we can just add in it, and send a letter if no issues, or return to the board if there are issues.
I thought you were gonna send that letter.
And
I
that's-
don't send any letters. I mean, I can sign it and send it, but I think the discussion was if Randy thought it was okay,
Yeah, he
send it
does.
back to the board.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but he was
So-
gonna give us some direction, and you're right, and see, this is good. This is gonna be something you need to
These-
follow
these are
up
the loose-
on.
the loose
These
ends
are
that
the
needs to
loose
be-
ends that the chairman's too busy for, vice chairman's running around doing what the chairman tells him.
You know
so
what?
you
I'll
get-
keep my own notebook.
Fantastic.
I'll do that.
That'd be great. We have a pad right there, John.
Did you get a letter to
I don't know
sign?
about real notebook.
Unless it's in that package.
No, if somebody makes
I
up
don't think
an
it
obligation.
would have been
I'll
in that.
follow
I
up with you.
appreciate that.
Okay, Mark, can you just, is there a letter in there to sign?
Let me see.
West Bridgewater? If there is, it's a moot point
Well, it
now.
would have been in the action, right?
Yeah, it would have been an action
Keats.
item.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I don't think it was prepared.
Nope.
So motion to approve the minutes of April 23rd, 2013 as amended.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Second by Ginny. Any more discussion?
Just under discussion, last time I came in to sign, there was a couple citations that we were giving out. It may have been in that pack, it was April 30th, so I may have signed it, if you want to just check with Sandra. She may have
Right.
put it together.
You might be
That
right.
was
'Cause there was the
Detective
one they
Crane.
left over the weekend on the.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm making a note, I'm gonna check it.
okay.
Okay. Good point. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Next thing, we have an appointment to Ellen Garber of 3 Tarian Drive to the Board of Registers for a 3-year term expiring on May 7th, 2016.
Motion to appoint Ellen Garber of 3 Tara Ann Drive to the Board of Registrars for a 3-year term until 2016.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Moving right down the line, William Casbera, accept a dissolution, is that how he? Dissolution of the signed bylaw review committee until the implementation of a town master plan, when the committee will then reorganize? Is that something we need to vote on?
Yeah, I had a question about that. What happens if a sign is an application for, whatever it is, an application for a sign or something like that? Who's gonna review it? Isn't that
Signed bylaw committee,
Bylaws.
The
the
bylaw.
bylaw?
yeah, signed bylaw
Okay.
committee just recommends changes in the bylaw, that's all they do.
Oh, all right, okay. So
You
this
know,
isn't
I
a
didn't know this
functioning-
was-
Bill
You know.
Casbera,
I didn't know this was coming, I apologize.
the building commissioner, and Jim, you're kind of in this field, there's bylaws on signs, on heights, dimensions, how high they can be over walkways, all that, so he has that in his bylaws.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think this is just I think this has to do with the electronic signs.
You know what, I don't recommend you take any action
Hold
because,
off.
Can we just
well,
let it go
it's
to the woman?
addressed to me, and I'm just seeing it,
Okay.
number one. Number two, I don't know if the signed bylaw committee is appointed because of the bylaw. I don't know if you appoint them, or I appoint, or who appoints them, so I think dissolving them is probably presumptuous until we learn a little bit more, and I apologize, I
We'll
can't
just
give you any
shelf it.
advice, I don't
We'll
know.
just shelf it.
Okay.
That's all right, we'll put it on for the next, meeting.
By the way, I don't necessarily disagree with the idea, I just would like to sit down with them and find out the background of that.
And then,
Before we continue, just a point of order, just so we don't get caught later. John just voted on 2 meeting minutes that he wasn't on the board at the time. I think you need to abstain from those.
I have no objection to them, though. We've had this practice on
Have
AdCom,
we?
where even if you
Yeah,
weren't
but-
at the meeting, you can still vote if you have no objection.
I believe last year I abstained on,
I think I have in the
Leave.
past too, and it's a good point.
Yeah.
We can if you want.
I'm just saying, if you approve something that you weren't
I was at the
part
meeting,
of.
I was at the meeting, so I
He
didn't
was
see
not-
any
he wasn't in
inaccuracies.
the
Oh, okay, all right, that's fine, that's
So,
fine.
yeah.
I just didn't know if you got past
You
that.
can watch it at
Just
home.
wanted you to think
No, I
about it.
was actually here.
So, is that, who are you? No.
Was that good-looking redheaded guy out there?
Okay, so, that's a good point, though, in the past, we have done that, but I know you were actually present for the meetings. Okay, number 4, Hacking's license renewal for Wallace W. Chase Jr. Everything in order, Lorraine?
Motion to approve the hacking license application for Wallace Chase.
It's a
Jr.
renewal.
Renewal, sorry.
Second on that?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yeah, one observation, I actually checked this out today. We're the only town in creation that calls it a hacky license. It's actually a Hackney, N-E-Y license. And I just, this might be something long-standing. I don't know if I'm absolutely correct. But it's,
Statute calls it a hacky license too, believe it or not.
yeah.
Hackney or Hackey?
Hacky. Oh, I don't know, it might be
I
hacky.
checked it out today. It's
Yeah,
Hackney,
it might
N-E-Y.
be, I don't know.
Yeah, put that on your notes.
I know it's been on the application forever.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a,
You know, I had a question. On the application, when it asks for the applicant's full name and then his address, that's the same address as the limousine service. I mean, is that Mr. Chase's actual address? Does he live at 51 Elm Street?
It would have to be.
I would assume.
And it's signed by the chief. It's
But-
probably on his license. I would imagine that address is on his license. It has to be a valid license with an address on it.
Would somebody have a phone
mean-
book?
The question, is he working out of his home? Yeah,
Well, is
probably.
this,
You're,
is this where this man lives, 51 Elm Street, which is 51 Elm Street is East Coast Limousine. Is this Mr. Chase, the person who resides at 51 Elm Street?
I don't know.
We got a phone book? Or,
Okay, we'll move on until then. Jerry Cirillo, Boyden Library, acceptance of the following donations to the Boyden Library Gift Fund. One, $350 from Kenneth and Patty Elovitz, Elovitz?
Yep.
For the renewal of a Providence Children's Museum Library Pass valid from 1/1/13 to 12/31/13. Two, $3,870, $75 from Lakeview Pavilion. Charitable Foundation Corporation for the renewal of the following library passes. Boston by Foot, Boston Children's Museum, Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, Museum of Fine Arts, Museum of Science, Mystic Seaport, New England Aquarium, Plymouth Plantation, and Zoo, New England, Franklin Park, and Stone Zoo.
Mike, you did both of them together?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do them separately. We want to vote on a motion on number one first.
Okay,
5-1.
okay, I move that we accept the generous gift of $350 from Kenneth and Patty Elovitz with gratitude, to be deposited in the library gift fund.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 5-0 on that, and 5-2, John?
I move that we accept the donation of $3,875 from the Lakeview Pavilion Charitable Foundation Corporation with gratitude from the Board of Selectmen to be deposited to the library gift fund.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much, generous donations. And number 6, Nancy Melody, Troop 7 Committee. This is just an invitation of the Eagle Scout Court of Honor on June 7th to honor William Edward Long, Jr., great kid in this community, know him well. So, and that's the Founder's Day. No, the day before Founder's Day, correct?
Friday of Founder's Day.
Friday of Founder's Day, and that's when we're gonna be
the
on the common.
Common.
What time is that? Is anybody, there's an
It says
invitation.
8 p.m.
on Friday the 7th.
Oh, you got it right there, print. 8, eesh. Might have to split up then, huh? We'll see what time Jack has his stuff going on, and we'll, but I did intend on going to that. I would imagine somebody else might be too.
I think we could probably split it up or do both.
So, John, one more thing is clerk, you need to
I will find someone to attend.
find, well, I will attend.
Okay.
But we're gonna try and, figure out what is gonna happen between, ask Jack what he's planning for June 7th, at what time, maybe he's gonna do it at 7 o'clock. It
Could be,
makes it
yeah.
more, appeasing for everybody.
See, 8 p.m. is late, so that, I'm guessing Jack would
Might
do it
have touched
earlier.
base with him already.
Well, it's
yeah.
right at Bethany also. It's like
Right, you walk
hop,
across the
skip, and a
street. Well,
jump
they're all,
to-
pretty much all
yeah.
at Bethany.
Yeah.
Like,
When was-
No, I
when
mean,
was-
it's right near the
When was Jack
bandstand,
gonna
so-
finish up?
I don't know, we're gonna have to touch base with him.
Okay,
Because
I'll
they're
ask
having the celebration on the common the Friday before,
Yeah,
Founder's Day, which is that Friday night.
I'll find out.
Okay.
But what this asks is, can a representative from the Board of Selectmen attend and give the citation?
Yes,
Okay.
somebody always does that.
Okay, are you gonna do that?
I will do that.
Okay.
Unless, I'm not gonna, but Jimmy's good friends with the family too, so maybe he wants to do that. So
Okay.
I'll have that discussion
Yeah,
with
we'll work
Jimmy
it out.
too,
All right,
you
fair
know.
enough.
I mean, he's a better talker than me anyways, so. All right, how we make out with the address?
Okay, on 51 Elm, excuse me, according to the phone book, I mean, we don't have the voter list, but there's a Mr. Nadeau, lives at 51 Elm Street.
Who's he?
And under Chase,
James, intern. He's okay. We like
I
him.
didn't know he was in the office, I've
And-
never met him.
yeah, and under Chase, there's no William Chase in the phone book. I mean, these are the landlines, but I mean, there's no, so
It's Wallace
What?
Chase.
Wallace Chase, yeah, there's nobody.
Yeah. Why don't we
So
approve it
can we-
subject to verifying his home address?
Probably.
You want to do that? And if it's got to go back to the police
What's the
chief,
date of effect on this thing, is it something
he
happened?
may live there and not be in the phone book too.
Yeah.
Paid for 18. Expires 10/20/14, that's the new one, so it probably expires the 20th of this month. Oh, no. How can that
No,
be?
10/20/13.
It's a renewal though, right?
Yes, it's a renewal.
Yeah, but it says expires 10/20/14, why would that?
That's his Massachusetts driver's license.
Oh, okay, thank you. So this would be, it doesn't say when it doesn't expire. Does anybody see that? 4/18/13 is the date it was signed.
So it would be expired 2 years from today.
Street listing?
The guy's from
don't know,
1942.
What are we worried about?
Well, because
Well, it says
it's an address,
the
and a
address.
license, right?
Well, do we have some reason to think this is not true? I mean,
We'd just like to
No.
verify it.
I've never
Yeah.
seen us
Not in
look at
front of
these before.
Oh, you should have been back a few years when we brought up extensively about Hackey's licenses, you know? And, 'cause we did so many of them. Jim Thrasher brought it up, so. But I would say make the motion subject, like Jimmy said, to verification of that as being his address.
Well, why don't we just have him check it out and then take care of it the next meeting?
What if his license expires? Whatever the board wants to do.
Well,
When
if his
does this-
license expires, you just put him out of business. Over
The
what?
li-
You might not have the right street address? I mean, that wouldn't be right.
So can we make it subject to confirming?
Hey, his phone number's on
I
here.
was
You
just
wanna
gonna
call
say
him?
the same thing.
543-0956.
I
I
mean,
can handle that.
Deputy Chief Chandler checked it out.
That's, I mean, usually rely on.
Well,
the
you know,
It's
address.
also,
if it-
it's Kevin, it's 9:30.
You know, if it's an if it's an application, I mean, and you ask for the address, it'd be nice to know if the guy actually lives at 51 Elm Street. If he doesn't, and something happens, you'd like to know where the guy lives.
We don't verify the information on the application unless it's something like a Corey check, and then we do that ourselves, but I don't verify.
Well, in order to
if-
do a Corey check, don't you have to have his address?
We don't do a Corey check on this, no.
We rely
But
on
The
the
only,
know what?
police
the only
department.
application, if we actually verified every single thing on an application, on every application we get every week, I'd need 3 more people in there. We,
Kevin,
We've
I
never
just
asked for that
I just
before.
looked at this,
All right,
and I could
all
see
right,
that the
all right.
address for the limousine service is 51 Elm Street.
Okay.
Then the applicant's name is Mr. Chase at 51 Elm Street. I look in the phone book, the name Nadeau lives at 51 Elm Street. There's no Wallace Chase in this phone book. I mean, granted, this is probably landlines, but there's no, you know, I don't see what the problem is. If I'd like to have an address to go with a name on an application.
You heard the lady. James?
I mean, I'm happy if we approve it, subject to verifying his address. If
phone's
his-
ringing,
if his-
maybe Mr.
If his- if he's watching it.
Hang on.
I mean,
we're
if the
coming.
address is wrong, then he doesn't get the approval, and he's gotta go to the chief and reapply for it.
Yep. Well,
Is 51 Elm where he houses his,
East Coast Limo is out of a house at 51 Elm Street. We have approved a number of licenses, and actually, Kevin, you made a comment how we were doing an awful lot of licenses out of 51 Elm Street, because it's a limo service. So chances are, everybody that we've approved does not live at 51 Elm Street. That's where the business is.
Okay.
That could be.
but maybe this gentleman does live there.
Maybe he does.
Don't know.
I'm
So
just
I
bringing
think-
up,
I think
I'm just
we're-
bringing up a question.
Well, let's assume, for sake of discussion, that he doesn't live at 51 Elm Street.
Well, then he should put down his correct address.
Would that cause you to not approve the renewal of his license? Let's say he lived in,
53 Elm Street.
well, let's say he lived in Walpole. Would you not approve his license?
I wouldn't even notice it. The fact that it says 51 Elm Street at 2 different address lines, I just want to know, where does the man live for the records for the town of Foxborough?
So we can get that for you. How
Fine.
about if you approve the license contingent upon verification of the applicant's home address of record?
Think
And we'll
we're
certainly
gonna
find
Fine.
that out.
Fine.
Okay, who
So,
wants to make that motion, James?
No?
No?
motion to approve the Hackney license application for Wallace W. Chase Jr. I think we already did this motion, but
Yeah,
we'll add
you're
to
right.
it,
It's been a long
subject to
discussion.
confirmation of the address on the application,
Home address.
the
Yes,
home
home
address
I'll
on the
second that.
application.
Okay. So strike the first motion, that's the second one. Who made the first motion?
I think I did.
So you need to withdraw your
I'll
first
withdraw the
motion.
first motion,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
And now her second motion stands, Jimmy seconded it. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right,
Their mailing address is in Mansfield.
there you go. So we must get our answer already. Okay, that's it for action, correct?
That
Okay.
is it.
And then we got a couple of things in information.
No, you don't have to, that's just info. You don't have to do anything on
I know, but we can't say what's in it to the public.
Oh,
That's all I'm saying. The Conservation Commission on the information, proposed seal of Garrett's Plain Road, parcel 216. Jerry Buckley, Comcast, price adjustment, July 1st, 2013. The town manager combination letters for operations, Lieutenant John Hamlin, police officers Jane Payne and Scott Hodson. And that's, something that maybe we're gonna be talking about here in the future, so.
Mr. Chairman, this letter from the Concom went to the Selectmen, but it should get copied to, what do you call your group, Lorraine?
Town Asset
Town
Review
Asset
Committee.
Review, because they're making all the recommendations if they don't have this, and it doesn't look like it was CC'd to them,
Okay,
so.
But Lorraine's got it.
I can,
so
I can
You bring
see,
it to
I can
them.
send it to them,
Okay.
yeah.
fantastic. Any other discussion before we?
And you're not on there, but just the dates for your meetings this year, so you can pencil them in on the calendar.
Okay, I'll make a motion, can somebody make a motion to go into executive session, please?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session. Should we adjourn this meeting first?
Yes.
Make a motion to adjourn, and then a subsequent motion to go into executive session.
Second?
To adjourn from executive session
Just adjourn our regular meeting.
and, right, second.
They usually do it.
Okay,
for,
roll call.
Executive session and return to
Yes.
regular session
Yeah,
to
I
adjourn
agree.
the meeting.
Okay.
Yes, Ginny, yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Yes.
Mark, yes. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank-
You said the purpose of the.
Oh, it's for, contract non-union contract negotiations, I believe, Frank, and,